Your neighbor and you make the same money. You bought the same kind of house. And for the last few years, you've both had the exact same $500 left over every month after the bills clear. He puts his straight onto the mortgage, extra principal, every single month, because that's what a responsible person does with spare cash. You put yours into the market instead. 30 years from now, one of you is going to look at the other's number and wonder where it all went wrong. And the strange part is, the one who did the responsible thing is usually the one asking that question. Here's what decides which of you that is. It isn't your income. It isn't how disciplined either of you is. It's a single number sitting on your mortgage statement that almost nobody actually compares to anything. Once you see it, you'll know exactly which side of it you're standing on. And so will I, because I'm about to show you mine. Strip away the spreadsheets, and this comes down to something almost embarrassingly small. When you pay extra on your mortgage, you are earning exactly your mortgage rate on that money. Nothing more, nothing less. A 3.5% mortgage paid down early is a 3.5% return, guaranteed and untouched by tax, because you're not earning income, you're erasing an expense. That's the entire ceiling. It can't go higher than your rate, no matter how the market does, because the bank doesn't pay you interest on the interest you avoided. Compare that to what the same dollar does sitting in the market instead. A long-run stock return runs closer to 7% a year. Tax takes a bite when you eventually sell, so the real number lands closer to 6%. Still, on paper, that beats 3.5% by a wide margin. So the question was never, is paying down debt smart? It's narrower than that, and it's the only question that matters. Is your rate above or below what your money could do somewhere else? That gap between the two, your rate against the alternative, is the entire video. Everything from here is just that gap run on real numbers. So let's make this real. Meet Dan and Wes, both 35. Both bought the same $400,000 house on the same street. Both put $80,000 down. Both financed $320,000 on a 30-year fixed at 3.5%. The kind of rate a lot of people locked in a few years back and have been sitting on ever since. Their base payment is identical to the dollar, $1,437 a month. Same job market, same raises, same $500 left over every month after everything else is paid. From this point on, everything about their financial lives is the same, except one decision. Dan takes his $500 and sends it straight to the mortgage every month, extra principal, on top of the $1,437. Wes takes his $500 and puts it into a low-cost index fund every month instead, and keeps paying only the base $1,437 on the house. That's the entire experiment. Same house, same income, same $500, same 30 years. One variable. Let's watch what it does. Watch what happens to Dan first, because for a long time, he looks like he's winning. Every extra $500 chips away at the balance a little faster than the schedule ever expected. Year after year, the payoff date creeps closer. And in year 18, month 10, it happens. Dan makes his final mortgage payment. Done. No more payment ever. Along the way, that extra $500 a month bought him something concrete. $80,015 in interest he never had to pay. An interest bill that would have kept running for 12 more years if he hadn't touched it. Dan tells his sister about it that Christmas. Mortgage-free at 46, 12 years ahead of schedule. She's impressed. He's proud. It's the kind of thing that's genuinely worth being proud of. And if the story ended there, he'd be right to be. But watch what Wes's $500 was doing that whole time, because it never announced itself the way Dan's payoff did. There's no ceremony when a monthly deposit lands in an index fund. No papers to burn. It just sits there, buying a little more each month and compounding on top of whatever it already bought last month. For 18 years, Wes has nothing to point to. No milestone, no I'm done moment. Just a number that's been quietly climbing the entire time nobody was watching it. Here's what neither of them can see yet, because it doesn't show up for another 12 years. The moment Dan's mortgage is gone, he takes that freed up $1,437 plus his usual $500 and starts investing all of it too. Good instinct, but he's starting 12 years late on money that was never given the chance to compound during the years it mattered most. Wes never had a payoff day, so he never had a starting late problem either. His money has been in the market since month 1. Working through every single year, Dan's was still tied up in a house. Run it all the way to year 30, the day both mortgages would have ended anyway. Dan's investments, the ones he started late, have grown to $386,667. Wes's, the ones that started on day 1 and never paused, have grown to $584,726. Same $500 a month, same 30 years, same starting income. The gap between them is $198,059, and it belongs entirely to Wes, the one with nothing to show anyone at Christmas. The mortgage-burning photo was real. The 12-year head start Dan gave up to take it was also real, and it was worth roughly 10 times what that Christmas conversation ever was. Before you go looking for Dan's mortgage statement to laugh at, understand that Dan didn't lose because prepaying is wrong. He lost because of the specific number on his particular mortgage. Change that one number and the entire story flips. Give Dan a 7.5% mortgage instead of 3.5%. Same $320,000, same market doing its usual 7%. Run the same 30 years, the same $500 a month, the same decision to prepay. This time, Dan finishes with $637,433. Wes, investing the same way into the same market, finishes with $584,726. Dan wins by $52,707. Nothing about the strategy changed, only the rate did. At 7.5%, paying down the mortgage early is a guaranteed return higher than what the market is likely to hand you after tax. And guaranteed beats likely every time the gap runs that direction. So where's the actual line? Run it at today's average rate, 6.5%, and the race gets close enough to call a rounding error. Dan finishes with $558,670. Wes finishes with $584,726. A gap of $26,056 after 30 years of compounding on a $250,000 decision. That's not a verdict. That's a coin flip wearing a spreadsheet. The rule underneath all 3 versions never changed. Below the line, your money earns more working than it does erasing debt, and Wes wins. Above the line, erasing the debt is the better paying, safer move, and Dan wins. Right on the line, it barely matters which one you pick, and arguing about it is arguing about nothing. None of this works if I only show you the version where the market cooperates, so let's not do that. Run Dan's original 3.5% mortgage again, but this time hand Wes a rough decade, a market returning something closer to 4% instead of 7%, the kind of stretch that has actually happened before. Wes still wins, but barely. His $584,726 shrinks all the way down to $342,635, and Dan's $325,147 is suddenly close enough to touch. A comfortable $198,059 lead turns into a $17,488 one, on the same rate, the same decision, the same discipline. Wes's entire advantage in the good scenario was built on a market cooperating for 30 straight years. It never has to. It's simply done so often enough that betting on it has usually paid off. And there's a second condition hiding in every version of this, one that has nothing to do with rates or markets at all. Wes's whole advantage assumes Wes actually sends that $500 to the fund every single month for 30 years, and never once talks himself into skipping it for a vacation, a new car, or a rough quarter. Dan's version doesn't need that kind of discipline, because a mortgage payment isn't optional. Nobody skips it by accident. That's the real case for prepaying that no spreadsheet captures. It's a forced win. The market's version is only a likely one, and only for the version of Wes who never blinks. So here's what to actually do with this. Pull up your mortgage statement and find your rate. Not your credit card, not your car loan, just the mortgage. Right next to it, a return you genuinely bet on for the next 20 or 30 years. Not the best year you remember, something closer to the long-run average. And knock off a point or so for tax. Whichever number is bigger tells you which side of the line you're standing on. Below roughly 5%, especially if it's fixed and you locked it years ago, the math leans toward investing the difference, and the longer you hold, the wider that lead tends to grow. Above roughly 7%, prepaying is very likely the stronger move, the rare case where the safer choice and the higher paying one are the same choice. In between, you're standing where Dan and Wes stood at 6.5%. And the honest answer is that it's close enough not to lose sleep over either way. Prepaying your mortgage was never about being responsible or reckless. It was one number the whole time. Your rate against what that same money could earn. Pull up your mortgage, write the rate next to a realistic return, and the gap tells you, in dollars, whether every extra payment is building your wealth or quietly costing you. That's the number both neighbors missed. Now you won't. If you want to run this on your actual mortgage, your actual rate, and see your real crossover point over 10, 20, or 30 years, that calculator is in the Wealth Logician's vault, along with the rest of the tools built for this channel. The link's in the description. Hit like if this changed how you look at that extra payment. Subscribe if you want to do the math on the next one.